I'm just a little bit nervous. I figure you're confused right now, but give me a second. It'll all make sense. So in my opinion, other than lift, wheels, and tires, I feel like the most popular upgrade on a Cherokee is a winch bumper. Around a junkyard, it's probably one of the most called after aftermarket parts is a winch bumper. Whether you build one, buy one, you're going to remove the factory bumper off your nice Jeep like this one. And as soon as you get it off there, you're going to take all the bolts and it's going to drop down and there's going to be a vacuum line attached to this little bottle right here. And next thing you're going to do is you're going to take it off and you're going to go post on the Cherokee pages and ask, do I need it? What's it do? And all that. So that's what I'm here to do, is essentially teach you what it does, what it's for, and then at the end of the video, you can decide whether you need it or you can throw it in the trash can and move on. This Jeep right here has absolutely no business having one on it, and I'll explain why. But a mint Cherokee like this, it's pretty much a necessity. You probably got to have it on one of them, and I'll explain why you need one. I'm not a scientist, but I'm going to explain as best I can on Jeep level. Not scientist level, Jeep level. Get what's called a vacuum gauge. Let's see, I'm reading it backwards. Anything on this side is negative PSI. Anything on this side is positive. Yeah, I did it right. Pretty sure. I mean, you think of airing up a tire, you put 30 pounds of pressure in there. Vacuum is just the opposite. It's the It's essentially the absence of air. So as weird as this sounds, when you crank any kind of combustion engine up, minus a diesel, Jeep levels, it wants to run wide open, but with the power of your foot, you can control how fast that engine runs. So when it's closed, this engine's pulling what's called a vacuum in the whole intake chamber and such and stuff like that. But as you open your foot up, the vacuum goes away. I'll try to demonstrate this a little bit. This one's quiet. You can see 0 is where we was at. And now we're pulling about 17, whatever terms they're using for units of measurement there. But as you apply throttle, you can see it goes up, goes down. Maybe y'all can see that. I think you can. So vehicles use vacuum to control lots of things, like things that when I was starting this video, I didn't even realize. Like at an idle, it changed vacuum. The amount of vacuum changes the fuel pressure for idle on this one. Vacuum assists your brakes. Not going hydro boost, different story, Jeep level. And then obviously got a map sensor that reads it, tells it how much fuel it needs to throw with it. So it's not even really close at all, but we're gonna call vacuum like the vehicle's electricity for, no, we ain't gonna use that. Safe form of gas to do things. God dang it. Let's call it hydraulic pressure. The hydraulic pressure that does random activities throughout your whole vehicle. So one of the first common things that you probably didn't even realize, this is what's called an HVAC box. It has your heater core, your evaporator core. So it's basically your heater, your air conditioning, and then when you slide this thing around and decide whether you want it to blow here or blow down there or blow on the defrost. Some models, this even controls hot and cold, but this one is just a cable on this setup right here. So all of them take different functions, and auto manufacturers decided to use vacuum. Sure, it's an old method back before electricity really caught on. Nowadays everything's electric, but Cherokee is not. So I know you can't see them all, but I'll show you operation of one. Obviously without vacuum they're not doing anything at all. See this one right here, follow it around to my yellow. Got vacuum coming off the motor. Should be able to hear that. And all we're gonna do is hook it up. See it moves right there. Like right here, this is a flapper. Hook it up to vacuum. You can see what it does right there. So that's probably the biggest one that you've ever run into and actually dealt with that you don't know. I feel like it's industry standard that car has to have defrost, because if you start up a long hill, or if your Jeep has just been hacked on or mounts ate a hose or something like that, if you have no vacuum, the way this box sits, it's going to blow out the defrost. I feel that's the safety standards. That way it's always trying to defrost your windshield, de-ice it so you can see. I don't know that, but again, somebody is noticing what I'm talking about. They started up a hill pulling a trailer or just driving their Jeep, and their nice ice cold AC's blowing right here, and then all of a sudden it just goes away. Some people don't know to reach up and feel that it's blowing up here, but regardless, lack of vacuum, it blows out defrost. So first thing that vacuum does that I've named off, this Jeep, the heater blows, that's about it. I take the doors off, I could care less. Now on the other hand, this one, I want everything to be perfect on it. So vacuum, very important. So if you've experienced what I'm talking about, going up a hill and like it start blowing out defrost, number one, you've probably got a leak, but for what this costs and as easy as it is, it's literally just a one-way valve. Like, I bought 3 of these off Rock Auto and not a single one of them works, but it's supposed to be able to suck one way and not blow out, or vice versa. That way when the motor pulls vacuum this way, it keeps the vacuum over here, but say it loses vacuum going up a hill, the way I showed you earlier with the gauge. If you're driving along there and it's got good vacuum and all of a sudden you stomp it going up a hill and your engine side loses vacuum, this will close off and store vacuum. And that's where this comes into play. It's basically a storage container for vacuum to do vacuum operated functions. I'm gonna try to show you cruise control here in a second. If it wasn't for this thing, you pretty much could not have cruise control at all. And this thing has to work proper, and you can't have a leak. So you're seeing this Jeep, I absolutely could care less about cruise control. Actually, it's not even on there. This Jeep definitely needs cruise control. I've got a cruise control off. I was playing with it earlier. It's basically just a diaphragm in there, and you supply it with vacuum. The computer tells it to put it on this side or this side of the diaphragm, and it moves it back and forth, which operates a cable just like your foot would. So it has to have vacuum, and without this vacuum bottle, if you start up a hill and motor goes to 5,000 RPMs pulling a trailer, if it sits for more than just a few seconds, this thing runs out of vacuum and can't do its job, and then it'll just kick the cruise control out. So that could be a problem if you're running into cruise control don't work, or you could just have a leak. 9 times out of 10, it's just this little thing. Let's see, this is a Dorman part number 47149. This is old, but pretty sure same part number. Let me pop the hood and show you where it should be located. This one don't even have one, I took it off. So let's just say on this side, the engine's pulling vacuum, usually either right here, if there's enough light, or right back here. If you look, there's always a vacuum line that runs that way. It'll go into the air conditioner box, whatever you want to call it. And if you see right there where my finger's pointing, that's this little thing that I showed you right here, one-way check valve. So when the engine starts up, it pulls a vacuum on the whole system, and everything's basically charged. You got your bottle down here that's charged up. Everything's got a good vacuum. So if for some reason you floor it, that whole vacuum system's going to drain back down the way it sits right now. That's the job of the one-way valve there. And even this one's got one going into the H. You can have, I guess you could have as many of them as you wanted just in case. And ironically, this one, somebody's been patching on a vacuum line right there with some electrical tape. This one, like I said, most definitely needs and wants cruise control and fully functioning air conditioning system and all that. Whereas this one, I've actually just bypassed it. Comes straight off the engine right there. Don't even have a one-way check valve. And then it just goes straight into there. Honestly, could care less. But all the vacuum stuff inside is very reliable, so I left it just in case I wanted a heater or blow it on your feet. But if I lose function and it goes to blow and defrost while it's going up a hill or something, that is perfectly fine with this Jeep right here. This one, different story. Y'all gonna want to see that one in a second. That's one thing I was going to add before I forget to say it. If you ever slide the slides and you got your vehicle turned off for just a few seconds or moments, sometimes this thing, you know, the bottle will hold enough vacuum that when you slide it over, it'll actually change a few of these functions and it's running off the vacuum and the recovery bottle, whatever we want to call it, thing, canister. But like this one, as soon as you cut it off, there's no vacuum left in the system, so if you move it, nothing happens. We'll say next thing, both of these and this one, pretty much every vehicle on the road, not Hydro Boost, have in common is vacuum assisted brakes. You can imagine the foot lever in there applies pressure in here. This is the assister, I guess you'd call it. It's basically the same thing as cruise control, except it's a whole lot bigger. So right here is where you push in, and then I'm not gonna get too scientific on how it works, but right here is where vacuum goes in. And like if you push it, if you're not pushing, it lets it go on both sides and equalizes the pressure across the whole thing. But as you push in here, it'll let out some of the vacuum on this side, and the vacuum will actually pull this way and assist your foot in pushing the brake pedal. And it'll come in right through there. Like, I could get a whole lot more technical on that. We're just trying to keep it basic. But that's what's crazy. These have their own check valve right here. So this one's been running. If I pull it off, that valve is bad. Probably got mud in it. Yep, see, it's not working. See if this one's working. That valve is bad. Ironically, this crappy Jeep out here has got a good one. Let me pop the hood. So it is a little hard, but like I said, it's pulling vacuum from the engine into here, and this is a one-way valve. You can hear it was actually still holding vacuum in there, and I can prove it. I'm gonna fire back up. Sorry, this is just a junkyard rig. It's got no muffler. It's the way I bought it. But you might be able to hear my foot. Hear that air pressure changing. We know it's got vacuum because the motor's running. Now I've cut it off on, we're not even cut scenes. We're gonna listen again. You hear that air, and then it goes away, and now I have nothing. So now I have absolutely no assisted brakes at all. I promise I'm not a liar. I've had Jeeps that I've junked out and I pulled the vacuum hose off down there. They'll be in the junkyard for literally months, and you go down there, pull it off, and it'll still have vacuum on it. So that's something, if it works, it works. Is that a safety feature of holding vacuum? So if you pull it down in dry or neutral and the engine's not running and you got brakes for like 1 or 2 pushes, that's good. But this Jeep, care less. It would be nice, but 9 times out of 10 I don't need it. I mean, you might be going up a hill and the engine die, and if you don't grab the brakes immediately, you won't have vacuum assisted brakes. You'd still have brakes, just not vacuum assisted power brakes. This one, not really a big deal. It's just a plus, but that'll probably hold vacuum for just a second. I didn't try it, but it works. It drives. It's all good. I did say it earlier, but older vehicles seem to use vacuum on everything. Like a Renix has vacuum lines run everywhere. One of the things, like the 4-wheel drive actuator that slides in the collar up there, that's powered by vacuum. I'm not gonna sit here and think of it. You probably know, and I'm just not thinking of it. But all those things back then was controlled by vacuum, and we've slowly just creeped away. Where's it at? This one has it back there. This one I've deleted it because it's off-road rig. I think usually they sit right here. On this one, it's mounted back there by the rear brake line, give or take. But it's a charcoal filled canister that pumps vacuum through the gas tank, and it's got like a one-way valve in the gas cap, and it like sucks through there and pulls the vacuum off the gas tank just for safety. Like this one don't even have it at all. It just kind of vents, so honestly I don't even know where it goes to. It's kind of like race car stuff, but this one, you obviously want it working. I think there's a name for it, something to do with evap emission system for the gas tank. So just something else vacuum does, it can't really get away from, but that's obviously for when it's running, so it wouldn't make a difference if you have the bottle. But where I was going is I was just sitting here realizing this is pretty sure 97 to 2001, and that's probably 87 to probably 87 to 96. And that's where I'm assuming they got smaller because they got less reliant on vacuum operated stuff. So if you're wondering why you've got a WJ, a ZJ, anything else, then you're wondering like, why does it not have one of those vacuum canisters? Well, they do. You just don't know about them. Right here on a, let's see, this is a WJ. They're mounted right here on the frame. So if you've had a wreck Jeep and you don't even know, and you're experiencing any of the symptoms that I've named off in this video. Prime example, I just parked right here. Let's see if that spider don't kill me. Look at there. Well, that's totally junk. It's got a hole knocked in it, so there's no way that thing could be holding vacuum. Somebody's gonna say they've owned a ZJ and there's not one on there. There is, and I admit it took me a long time to even know that it had one. ZJ being 93 to 98, give or take. So check this out right here. Look under the battery box, and that's it. I don't know if I have a battery box laid off anywhere. I was trying to find one. You can see that's the vacuum hose running down to it. You can follow it around. But yeah, that's the vacuum bottle, canister, whatever we want to call it, right there. So where do we stand? I think y'all are getting what I'm getting at. If your Jeep is leaned towards factory, daily driver, everything works the way it should, and you want everything to work, cruise control, you're worried about where your air blows out, stuff like that. If you go to put an aftermarket bumper, you probably want to keep this. You can rerun the lines, you can put it under the hood, put it anywhere you want, to be honest, as long as you run a vacuum line. If you've got an off-road rig that you could care less about any of those simple features, this is doing you no good. It's just a waste of space, waste of time, literally doing you not a bit of good. So I feel like that conclusion's got it covered. I want to show you, well, you probably seen at the start of the video what I was attempting to do with that rib limiter over there. Let me move these around and I'll show you, but I feel like that's covered enough. It's pretty basically common sense. If you've got a nice Jeep and you want everything to work, you need this to be on your Jeep. If you've got a junky one that you can care less, throw this in the garbage. Let me move these Jeeps around. I'll show you what I was dreaming of. I could lie and say this thing's got a stroker motor. What got me to dreaming, at first I wanted to show you cruise control and how loss of vacuum would not allow the actuator to actuate with no vacuum power. But luckily I thought of another story. Obviously I can't find a video that's been years ago, but y'all seen the way we drive Cherokees. There was a, I guess you call it a woods course that I was racing through, and I didn't really need to go any faster. I was just keeping the revs up to have the best steering I could, get the fluid flowing. And you've seen the way we shift our gears. I had it clicked over in second, and it was just driving with the rev limiter. I was driving through the woods, just bum, 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 bum on the rev limiter. And I was kind of panicking because I was in a race. I was fixing to dive off a mountain, and I went to hit the brakes, and they was just hard as a rock. And it's so crazy, even during the race, my brain was processing. I was like, you're sitting here riding the rev limiter, so you've got no vacuum stored in your brake booster. So I was panicking. I was like, I'm going to jump off this cliff. Even though I didn't need to go any faster, I clicked up to third, and I would go, let's just make up 100 foot, and then it would get brakes back, and then I'd click it back to second to have the good steering. But that's where I was trying to go with this experiment I've done. It didn't quite work out, but it's funny, so we're going to do it anyway. So don't have to elaborate everything, blah, blah, blah. This one's a mess, but I went and cut a pigtail off of cruise control, and I figured out what wires makes it pull. If you pay attention, it's got a cable, runs around, hooks in, and this one right here, that's your throttle cable. It just mimics your throttle input right there. Computer controlled, clicks vacuum, blah, blah, blah. We're not going to explain it, but I was just trying to mimic it and show you when it gets to a certain RPM, it's going to lose its vacuum number and then pull back, but it's just not quite working out. I hope you get the picture. So again, I'll explain it. Vacuum goes in this little hose here, that the vacuum has come from the engine, and right dead center here, I could probably bust it open. I might do that in a second. But there's a diaphragm dead center. So the computer controls whether the vacuum goes on this side, or it vents a side. And if it pulls vacuum on the proper side, it pulls this cable shorter, and that gives your engine throttle. But as I'm going to demonstrate, at a certain RPM, there is no vacuum to be used. That's where the vacuum bottle comes into play if you have it. If you don't have it, you have no vacuum to run your cruise. I think I'm gonna go explain to my wife what's going on. If you can look right there, it's going on 9 o'clock. All right, real quickly, I'm gonna just explain. I got to thinking, I was like, nobody's gonna believe what I'm saying right here. But we're gonna listen real carefully. Hear that click? So just to prove that's vacuum powered, it's clicking, whatever it's doing there, doesn't matter, but the engine's not running. As you can see on our gauge, it is pegged out at dead zero. So that means there's no vacuum. On paper, this should work. I could probably finesse around with it for a long time and get it to work. But it's just really scary standing right here doing what I'm doing. It's different sitting in the driver's seat. Make sure it's in park. Turn it where it'll go that way, away from me. So zero's over here. You don't want to. Oh, come on, man. There we go. So, where are we at? Zero's over here. This is negative PSI. So this is basically the opposite of positive PSI, which does like an air pressure in your tire, your stuff. This is the scary part. Then it goes up to 25. That's a really strong vacuum, so that does a lot. But in theory, when it's essentially pegged out at zero because the throttle's wide open, you shouldn't be able to pull that cruise control. Every squatted truck owner right now is dying to know how to make this switch. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. That's a cool switch. I don't know how much more to elaborate on this subject. I hope you learned something. That's essentially the best I can do explaining. One day if I can hire a fancy editor to do fancy crap, but I don't want to have to get to that stage. I just want to stay who I am, do what I do, and y'all enjoy. Hope you learned something. I wish every person that posts on the Jeep forum about these stupid bottles could watch this video. I know I can't make you, but that would clean up those pages so people will quit asking about the diff covers and this bottle and other random questions. So any ideas, comments, y'all know to do that. Have a good day.